Okay, we're studying the gates of trust today, second last chapter. We're talking about the security mentality. Security as in guarantee mentality, or like a pledge. When you ask someone for a pledge, for a guarantee, what does that say about your relationship with that person? If you take a loan from the bank and the bank takes collateral, security, a pledge, a guarantee, what does that say about what the bank thinks about you? It means that they don't trust you. That's what it means. It means that they're not quite sure, they're not convinced that you're actually going to pay back this loan. And therefore, they say, well, we're secure, knowing that we already have collateral just in case you don't pay back the loan. Like Elaine says, trust but verify. It means that you don't trust Elaine. That's what it means. If trust but verify is a play on words, it means I don't trust you. That's why I'm asking you for collateral. If a friend asks you for $10, you'll typically say, here it goes, here's $10. But if you say, well, what are you going to give me to make sure you pay me back? That says a lot about your relationship. It means you don't actually think they're going to pay you back. So you're taking collateral. When you ask someone for a guarantee, it means that inherently you don't trust them. And what we're about to do is cover that mindset in our relationship with God. What kind of relationship do you have with God? When God tells you that he's going to do something for you, do you actually trust him? Or do you need a guarantee? Do you need a pledge? Right? If you're looking for a pledge, it means that you don't trust God. And what we're about to discuss right now is the 7 different reasons why this is a flawed approach when it comes to God, why it makes absolutely no sense for you to turn to God asking for a guarantee, why you should absolutely throw your trust on God. These are the words of King David in Psalms. I love the book of Psalms because Psalms is expressive of a very deep level of trust. He says in Psalms 55, towards the end of the chapter, Hashleich al Hashem yehavcha, throw upon God your trust. Just throw upon God your trust. It's like when you jump and you're trusting that you're going to be able to land safely. You're not walking sure-footed one in front of the other. You're jumping. You trust God blindly. I throw my trust upon God. I'm not calculated. I'm not suspicious. I'm not asking God for assurances along the way, like a railing that I'm holding on. I jump and I say, God, I know you're going to catch me. That's the approach of David. That's how we approach God. Well, we're not looking for guarantees. We're not looking for pledges. We're not looking for securities. See, what is the security in this example? The security is what are you clutching onto? What are you clutching onto when, let's talk financially. Let's talk medically. What will break your serenity if taken away from you? If your doctor tells you that you're no longer a patient, he doesn't like you anymore, will that break your serenity? Just think about that a moment. I know a lot of people that would break their serenity. What happens if you lost your job? God forbid. Would that break your serenity? Would that increase your anxiety? Or maybe stocks went down the drain, God forbid. You see, if they break your serenity, it means that that's your pledge. I trust God, I trust God as the master of all things. But I need a collateral. The collateral is the doctor. The collateral is the job, the paycheck. The collateral is the stock. You see, when the bank lends me money, they don't trust me. They trust the collateral. That's what they're doing. They're trusting in the collateral. They're saying, we don't trust. The collateral, your house, we do trust, because that's real estate. So in my relationship with God, I could trust in God, and I could talk about trusting in God. But the question is, where's my trust really will be determined by whether I have a collateral. And that collateral would be in the place where I really put my trust, to the point that if that's taken away, will I experience elevated anxiety? So the one who trusts in God, who doesn't take any collateral, doesn't ask God for a pledge, will say, no, God, you want to give me this doctor? You want to give me that doctor? You want to give me no doctor? It doesn't matter to me. It's exclusively in you that I trust. And all these are merely details. Because remember, we spoke about the doctrine of anonymity. God just wants to remain anonymous. He wants to make it look like the blessing came from somewhere else, from the doctor, from the business. But the one who trusts in God knows that that's just a facade. It's just fake. I don't have any comfort in the collateral. It means nothing to me. The doctor or the lawyer or the business or the stock. That over here is the nuance which we're wrapping up the gates of trust with. Is your trust in God exclusively, or is your trust also to some degree in the conduit of the blessing, which is effectively becoming your collateral? Now, in this book over here, this one, the duties of the heart, we're in the gates of trust. See the page that we're on. Sorry, I lost my place. Here, we're on page 456. In this book, we're on page 456. We're starting chapter 6. There's only 7 chapters here in this book, in the Gates of Trust. Okay, so I'm going to read it. It goes as follows. I find it imperative to expose the ignorance and error in this outlook in 7 ways through which the magnitude of the error will be revealed, even if it entails a lengthy discussion. For this puts to shame and reproof the advocates of this attitude, who are known as the advocates of pledge-taking. In this, they are like the businessman who, when selling on credit to someone he does not trust, asks for a pledge at the time of the sale because he fears that his client is unreliable and will be unable to repay him. So that's why this businessman will be asking for a collateral. Now, there's 7 reasons why, when you turn to God, asking for a collateral is wrong and outright insulting. The first reason is that it's insulting. To ask God for a collateral is deeply insulting to the source of your blessing, and you're literally biting the hand that feeds you. I mean, imagine you walked into someone's house and they were offering you a place to stay. And you said, I have to pat you down to make sure that you're not carrying a weapon that you're going to shoot me with. You're effectively telling them, look, thank you, but no thank you. Like, I don't really trust you. So it's going to mitigate their confidence in their wanting to help you. So when you turn to God and you say, God, thank you very much, but I need a guarantee. I need something to sink my teeth into that I can really trust. That's deeply insulting to God. The first way of refuting someone with such an attitude is by saying to him, you who doubt the Creator's power to determine and do not believe in his great might, you whose light of intellect has been dimmed, whose lamp of understanding has been put out, overcome by the darkness of your desires, it would be correct on your part to demand and take a pledge from your friend and equal, who has no authority over you and whose command does not obligate you. So maybe from a friend who has no power over you, it would make sense for you to take a collateral if you were lending them money. It would not, however, be correct for a hired worker to insist on receiving from his employer a security for his salary before he has even started working for him. It's deeply insulting. You're an employee, you're just starting the first day of the job, and now you're already demanding a collateral for that you're going to get your paycheck at the end of the month? What? Never heard of such a thing. Certainly a servant should not insist on receiving from his master a security for his maintenance before beginning to serve him. Still less should a creature demand a pledge from his creator before beginning to serve him. God is more than our boss. He is our creator. What a thought. What a chutzpah. For a servant to serve his master on condition that he be paid for his services, it's considered disgraceful, as I said. Be not like servants who serve the master on condition of receiving reward, but be like a servant who serves the master not on condition of receiving reward. This is from Ethics of the Fathers. All the more so if he dared to ask for a pledge to secure his maintenance before beginning to serve him. So your general attitude with God should be one out of love, not out of compensation. But beyond that, even if it wasn't God that you're talking about, even a regular employee doesn't ask for collateral on day one of the job. Of such conduct, the Torah says, is this how you repay God, you foolish and unwise people? Doesn't make any sense. It's insulting to ask God for a pledge. If God is the source of your blessing, you definitely don't want to slap him in the face. And therefore, it's actually worth our while to throw our trust on God, as David says in the book of Psalms, in Tehillim, as opposed to having a suspicious and untrusting relationship with God. It's just not good business sense. The reason why you should trust in God and not trust in your collateral, which is the conduit for the blessing, is because you simply don't know how much collateral you need. When the bank lends you money, they know, well, we lent you $100,000, your house is worth $200,000, so we know we're safe and secure. But you really know how much you need for collateral when you're asking God for the blessings that you need? I mean, how much do you really need? Is it even possible to calculate that? Number two, when a person receives a pledge from his fellow, there is a limit to it. His demand is limited. But there is no end to what an advocate of this outlook seeks with regards to God, because he does not know what will suffice to support himself and his family in basics and in luxury for the rest of his life. How much collateral do you need from God to know that he's going to give you everything that you need from him? I mean, how much money is that? $1 million? Is it $100 million? How do you even put a number on how much you need for the rest of your life? At the end of the day, it's not anything you can truly calculate. Even if he has far more money than he needs, he does. So even if you say, well, I know how much money I need for the rest of my life, he still doesn't feel secure because their lifespans are hidden. We don't know how long you're going to live. So maybe they'll find a cure for all illness and you'll live 150 years old. This concept of outliving your money is a genuine fear from what I understand, that people are afraid of living too long because they're going to live out their money or outlive their money. And what are you going to do then? So you got a real problem over here. We don't want to be wishing ourselves to die early, God forbid, only because of your money. You're trusting in the pledge. You're going to trust in God. He does not feel secure because their lifespans are hidden. The measure of their days is unknown. He is ignorant of what he is asking for, since his needs seem unlimited amid immeasurable. He's ignorant of what he's asking for, since his needs seem unlimited and immeasurable to him. So that's another reason why you shouldn't be suspicious of God and seek to gain a pledge from God, like a job or a doctor, that will secure the blessing that you need. Because we're talking financial right now. Because if you're going to ask God for a source of income, that's going to be your pledge that God will deliver the goods. How do you know how much you ever need? Number three, if you want to take a pledge from God, if you want to take a pledge from your friend, where your friend owes you, fine. But what happens? Let's say you go to the bank, right? And the bank, you owe the bank, fine, so take a pledge. But what happens if if you owe the bank? You already owe the bank, right? So now, you don't take a pledge from someone to whom you are already owe. And that is the nature of our relationship with God. A third reason why it's deeply insulting to come in with a suspicious attitude to God. And that's why it's going to sabotage your ability to receive free-flowing blessings from God. Imagine you sit down to dinner. Your wife made you a great dinner. Come home. And you sit down to dinner. And you say, wife, thank you very much for the dinner, but I need a taste tester to make sure that you're not poisoning me. It's not going to go over very well. That's going to become a real problem when your wife realizes that you don't trust her. Right? Can you imagine you said that to your wife? I need a taste tester. And make sure you're not poisoning me. Right? So I'm sorry, I missed these comments coming in. Hi Bob Wertheimer, Graciela, Yosef, Marty, you don't absolutely trust them. I'm not sure which comment you're referring to exactly. Hi Andy and Hannah, Terry Zweig. Sorry, I missed those comments coming in on Facebook. All right, so if you came in with that attitude to your wife, it would be terrible. Now remember, your relationship with God is just as romantic as it is with your wife. And in the same way that you slaughter the romance by asking for a taste test to ensure that you're not being poisoned, in the same way, the romantic relationship with God, who lovingly provides for all of our needs, you made it to this day, right? You're here today. He obviously provided for all your needs until now. The romantic relationship with God is also mitigated, hijacked, sabotaged. When you say, God, I need a taste test to make sure you're not poisoning me. I need a guarantee that I'm going to get the money that I need. And obviously that will be in the form of the job, the stocks, the options, whatever, that I am really trusting in for my blessing. So let's take a look at this third one, which is the third reason, third of 7, of why you shouldn't ask God for a guarantee, for a pledge, for a security. Why you should trust exclusively in God, because you already owe God so much more than God owes you. Take a look. One who takes a pledge from his fellow will do so only if he has no outstanding debts to his fellow. So the bank doesn't owe you anything. That's why they take a pledge from you. And the latter has no claim against him, in which case he is justified in taking it. But if he has outstanding debts to his fellow and knows that the latter has real claims against him, he should not under any circumstances ask him for a pledge. You know, they say that if you owe the bank, how's it go, the saying? If you owe the bank $1 million, then the bank owns you. But if you owe the bank $100 million, then you own the bank, right? So obviously we know that in certain cases, the bank will loan money on a handshake. They'll loan money on a handshake for you, a special relationship, will give you the money. Why is that? Because the bank knows that they owe you more than you owe them. So they won't even ask you for collateral. Because they know that you've done so much for the bank that the relationship is so deep and personal that they won't even dare to have the chutzpah to ask you for collateral. There's a member in our community who had a terrible story many years ago. His son was taken hostage. And their son was taken hostage. Their son was taken hostage. I'm saying in the form of he, because I heard the story from him, and he actually was asked for a ransom of $50,000. So he walked into the bank and he asked the bank for $50,000 on a handshake. They said, here you go. They literally handed him a briefcase. They said, pay it back when you can. Because he had that kind of relationship with the bank. I guess they owed him more than he owed them. And that's the nature of our relationship with God. That we owe God much more than God owes us. And in that case, it is deeply insulting for us to ask God for a guarantee. How much more so? So it would not be right to take it from him, even if he volunteered to give it. Right? It wouldn't be right for the bank to take the collateral, even if the borrower offered to give it to the bank. How much more so is this the case in regard to the Creator, to whom man is so truly indebted? That if all the good works of all the people throughout history were to be credited to one individual, all these would not suffice to repay the Creator for even one of his favorites towards him. If we as human beings were to collect all of our good deeds into one person, those merits would still not be enough to repay God for all the kindnesses towards a single man. I mean, God gave me life. God put me in this world. I owe God my very life, my very existence. Especially with the doctrine of perpetual creation, you realize that God didn't just create me once. God creates me at every single moment in time. My entire being relies on God. That's the doctrine of perpetual creation. At every single moment, God creates me anew. Truly a powerful point to ponder upon. When you think about that, how every single moment, every breath that I breathe, every step that I take, I owe God. You realize that there's no way in the world that I could ever repay God for what I owe him. And since I'm so incredibly indebted to God, for me to ask God for any guarantee is just so incredibly inappropriate. If my very life is reliant upon God, my ability to breathe at every moment is relying upon God creating me right now, then I should ask God for a guarantee that he's going to give me money? That's ridiculous. It makes no sense. How then can this brazen individual not be ashamed to ask of the Creator that in addition to past favors, he should grant in advance fresh favors in advance? This only increases debt, while he may never be able to fulfill those vows of service he has already made, because his days will be over and his life ended. How do you know you're ever going to be able to finish what you promised to give to God? One of the pious used to say to people, my friends, is it possible that the Creator would ask you to perform today tomorrow's duties due a year or several years from now? You can't perform today something which your duties of tomorrow or your duties due in several years from now. They would answer him, how could we be held responsible now for duties due at a time that we may never live to see? We are bound to perform a definite service only at a definite period. When that time comes, we'll be obligated to render that service. Right? We'll cross each bridge as we get there. So the wise man, the pious man now says, he would then say to them, thus too, just like you can't guarantee something which is going to be in the distant future, because you don't even know if you'll be alive, thus too the Creator may be exalted, has promised you for every definite period a certain provision. And in return for it, you are bound to a definite service. Just as he does not demand from you service before its time, so should a sense of shame restrain you from asking for the granting of provision before its time. Why then do I find you seeking from him provision for years ahead, years which you may not live to see? I think that the core of the mentality here is the way that we were initiated as a Jewish nation. I've spoken about this many times, but the reason I bring it up is because we're supposed to think about this every single day. We're supposed to think about the manna that we receive from God every single day. When the Jewish people were being transformed from a nation of vagabonds into the chosen people, when they were being taken out of Egypt, and Egypt, the slave mentality was being taken out of them, God put us through the desert for 40 years to give us manna every single day. And the manna was provided to us only one day at a time. You had to be able to go to sleep at night and fall asleep at night knowing that I have no money and no resources for tomorrow, because I fully trust blindly in God that tomorrow is a new day and tomorrow God will provide for my needs all over again. Every morning they would wake up and they would go out to the fields, and there they would find the manna waiting for them. Not the fields, whatever, outside of the camp. They would see the manna ready and waiting for them. But when they went to sleep at night, they had no resources. This is the ability to trust in God each and every single day for this day, in the power of now, for this moment. I'm not worried about the future. I'm not worried about the past. I'm not anxious about the future. I'm only present in the current moment. And that's how God provides for us. God provides for us in the here and now, today. If you think about it, all your worries and anxieties are all about the future. But in the present moment, things are generally okay, because God generally provides for us right here, right now. There's nothing to worry about in the present moment. Worry only exists relating to the future. And I want you to think about this for a moment. It's a pretty deep meditation. Why is it that there's no worry about the present? Why is it that worry exists only in the future? The reason is, based upon the doctrine of perpetual creation, God is present only in this moment. The future doesn't exist yet. The future wasn't yet created. It's only this moment that is being created as we speak. You know those cartoons that, I think it's like a drawing. You see this like stick figure, and as he is walking, the cartoonist is drawing every next step of the way. It's like walking down the street, and there's like a car, so he draws a car, and then he draws a lamppost, and he draws a tree. And as the guy's walking, I forget what this cartoon is called, but as the guy's walking, the stick figure is walking, the scene is being drawn as he is walking. So the creature is oblivious, the cartoon character is oblivious of the fact that the future doesn't yet exist, and is being drawn just one step ahead of him as he's entering into the next moment. If anybody can tell me if you remember what that thing is called. I'm curious to know if you know what that thing is called. I forget what that kind of cartoon is called. But that's what our lives are like. Where if you're sitting over there and you're thinking about the future, no wonder you're worrying. You're worrying because God is not there yet. God hasn't created the future. God has only created the present moment. That's why there's such serenity and peace in the present moment. And there's such anxiety in the future because God is not in the future. God is only here with me in this present moment, the moment where God is creating me right here, right now. If we want to divest ourselves of anxiety, we have to be present in the current moment. And that's the mentality that God was teaching us when he took us out of Egypt for 40 years, when he gave us manna each and every single day. Only enough food for that day, to teach us to live in the moment, not to worry about the future, to trust God about the future. Say, you know what, the future I'm not worrying about because that's God's problem. God will take care of me then, just like he took care of me until now. And it makes sense, you know. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. If God has provided for all my needs until this point, then why should tomorrow be any different? This is sort of how budgets work in a business, from what I understand. If you have a budget, you're able to make your projections for the future. You say, look, well, this is how we've managed every January for the past 10 years, every June for the past 10 years. So there's no reason to believe that it's going to be much different for the next 10 Junes. Obviously, you got to adjust for pandemics and recessions and whatever else. But you have every reason to believe that if my past 10 Junes have been this way, then my next 10 Junes should be projected to be similar with a certain trajectory of growth. The definition of insanity would be to expect different results from the same actions. So if God has provided for all my needs until now, then why should that cease moving forward? To worry about the future is an inherent lack of trust in God. To live in the present means that you're trusting in God right here, right now. Because God is with me in this moment. God is not with me in the future because the future hasn't been created yet. It's just a figment of my imagination. The doctrine of perpetual creation tells us that at every single moment, God recreates the world anew. If you've missed this concept, it's in our previous classes in this course. You'll find these courses at jewishgardens.com/trust. That's jewishgardens.com/trust, where we talk about this idea of how God creates the world at every single moment in time. God is with me only in this moment. And there's no reason for me to worry about the future. Ask that he provide you in advance with maintenance for your wife and children who do not yet exist. The future doesn't yet exist. Provisions for your basic needs alone are not enough for you. Rather, you want to be provided in advance with basics and luxuries for an indefinite period, for which you have no guarantee of life. Who says you're even going to be in the future? Maybe God is going to take you and put you in another world for the future. What are you worrying about the future? Who knows what's going to be? Not only do you not render service to God in advance, but you fail to make a personal accounting of your neglect of his service in the past. So you owe God so much for what not only you want him to guarantee the future, but you're forgetting what you owe him for the past. Times when he never neglected to provide you with your needs. And this is now the third reason of why you shouldn't be suspicious of God, why you should trust in God in the present moment and not demand a guarantee for the future, not to have the security, the pledge mentality. Marty says, I thought Hashem is in the past, present, and future. The name of God is Havayeh, which is past, present, and future, but all in one. All in one. Which means there is no past, there is no present, there is no future. There is only now, and God is everywhere all at the same time. What that means is that for God, the future is not something which is going to happen. God is everywhere all the time. It's an abstract concept. What I think you're doing, Marty, is that you're mixing the fact that God is not limited to time. The fact that God created time, the fact that God created nature and math, means that God is not limited to any of those. But as far as we are concerned, God is creating us at every single moment in time anew. So as far as our experience is concerned, God is with us only at this moment because I don't exist tomorrow yet. But you do raise an interesting point, like an abstract point of view. I should think about this. That yes, God is already knows what's going to be in the future. But that's because God is now in the future. Look, I don't want to get sidetracked over here. It's an abstract concept, but the point is that God is creating the universe at every single moment in time. Obviously, God is not limited to time, which is, by the way, the reason that you can do teshuvah. Why is it that you can change the past? How can you change the past? Because the past is also in this moment. Right now, my moment right now, I'm able to change the past, to change my behavior in the past. Because the past, the present, and the future is all incorporated in this moment. It's a very powerful concept. I don't want to blow it out. It's going to take too long to get into that idea. But for the purposes of this conversation right now, all we need to know is the doctrine of perpetual creation. Right? And that this moment, as far as we're concerned, is all that matters. I say it's only in the present, Marty, because it's only this present moment that is being created. It's only this present moment that is being created, at least in our experience. Of course, God knows what's going to be before it happens. But how do I know that I'm going to be there? God knows what's going to be in the future, but how do I know? There's no reason for me to worry about that. That would be insulting for me to demand God provide for me tomorrow if I don't know if I'm even going to be here tomorrow. God knows, but I don't know. And therefore, for me to demand of God a guarantee for tomorrow is insulting because I didn't even know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. That's basically the element here. Thank you, Marty. Good, tough question there. It's a tough question. Very esoteric, a little deeper than I wanted to go, but I appreciate you bringing that up.